Well, today, a milestone. For Martin Luther King Jr. was one of his greatest goals. It was the Fair Housing Act, and it requires that all Americans have equal access to housing. 40 years later, how well is it working? CNN personal finance editor Jerry Willis has been looking at how the law is enforced today. Was the dream realized as it relates to fair housing for everyone?
Well, no, as a matter of fact. You know, the Fair Housing Act was supposed to make housing fair and equal for everybody, from landlords to home sellers. But in fact, that's not exactly what happened. Take a look.
In the spring of 1968, the United States was a nation divided by race.
What was going on in this country? What was the tone?
Segregated schools by race, segregated jobs, and segregated housing.
African Americans were regularly denied mortgages and prevented from renting in white neighborhoods, which had better housing and schools. That caused blacks to march for fair housing laws aimed at ending discrimination.
The marches to improve integration were met often with an enormous amount of violence, simply because people didn't really understand what integrated communities might lead to.
Resistance was also felt in Congress, where a bill aimed at ending discrimination against minorities wishing to buy or rent houses was stalled. That quickly changed after the assassination of Dr. King, which sparked 5 days of widespread rioting.
Emotions at the time, I think, suggested that this was not the time now to back down and do nothing.
King's death in April 1968 prompted Congress to pass the Fair Housing Act. But 40 years later, the National Fair Housing Alliance estimates almost 4 million housing violations against all minorities every year, including uncooperative real estate agents who put up roadblocks to keep minorities out of white neighborhoods. The John Marshall Law School in Chicago runs a fair housing legal clinic. They say discrimination today is more subtle and difficult to detect.
Instead of talking to people when they call, they allow the answer machine to answer and let the people leave a message and try to determine, is this person white, black, Hispanic?
The clinic routinely files lawsuits against management companies and landlords who discriminate, often winning settlements for their clients. While progress has been made since 1968, Damian Ortiz says there's still work to be done.
And it's unfortunate that 40 years later, we're still dealing with the same issues.
Still dealing with the same issues 40 years later. The problem now really in mortgage financing. Instead of ignoring or refusing loans to racial minorities, now lenders seeking them out for subprime loans that have high fees.
Yeah, and so you talk about the need for more aggressive policing and enforcement of things that are already on the books.
Exactly. That's exactly what Jesse Jackson told me. He says that if we'd only enforce the laws that are on the books right now, we wouldn't have the problems we're having right now with reverse redlining, where people are getting these subprime loans, but the terms are so onerous that they can't stay in their house.
Difficult time, and as you pointed out, you gave some numbers as well. HUD has a number, as well as some of the other ones, to try to help people out that find themselves in this.
There is help out there if you need it. If you're looking for assistance today, go to HUD.gov on the web. They have counselors in communities all over the country that can help you out, give you advice if you're struggling with paying your mortgage right now.
And when you talked about that yesterday, I had a lot of people ask me again, what were those numbers? Because I think I need to call.
We can't say them enough.
Yeah, absolutely. It's on our website as well. Jerry, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And join Jerry for her show Open House. It's tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Eastern.